In this video, you're going to learn some intermediate Excel for Mac skills, tips, and tricks. And if you have not already watched my previous video, you might want to do that first. A couple of months ago, I made a video called The Beginner's Guide to Excel for Mac, and you might want to watch that first and then watch this second. But in that previous video, we created the beginnings of an inventory of board games and card games at my house. And in this video, we're going to continue on and learn some fantastic additional Excel features and tools. The first thing I would like to do is to focus on a few more formatting options. In the previous video, we looked at how to format this, to merge and center these cells, to put in a background color on this cell, and to change the text color. So what other formatting options do we have? Well, the first thing I'd like to show you is here in the upper left, we have a very powerful tool called the Format Painter. And it looks like a paintbrush with the word format right next to it. And this is very useful. Basically, what this is for is it's for copying and pasting not text, but the format of a particular cell or range. So for example, let's say I like the format that I've set up for this particular cell, and I would like it to also be applied to these cells, to this row. All I have to do is click on the cell that has the format I'd like to copy, and then I click on Format Painter. It highlights that cell, and then whatever I click on next will be formatted the same way. Now you'll notice what happened. Not only did it copy-paste the background color and the color of the text, but it also copy-pasted the merge and center that I had applied to the Family Game Inventory cell. So let's try another example. Let's say here in column A, I end up applying some formatting to these names of great card games and board games. Maybe I highlight that range and then I make the text italicized. Maybe I change the font type to be something a little different. And then I'll double click here to make sure that the text fits in the provided column. And maybe I also change the color of the text itself. Okay, so I've made some adjustments to the formatting. I don't necessarily like this, but consider this just to be an example. Now, if I would like to apply this same formatting to another part of the spreadsheet, all I have to do is click on a good example of what I want, click the Format Painter, and then click on the cell I would like to have that same formatting. So I'm going to click here, and that undid the merge and center, and it made the entire row, in this case, match the formatting here at the left. Now, just to be clear, you can use the Format Painter with just one cell to make that cell match, and you can also use the Format Painter with a range. I'm going to undo all of this to get back to the original spreadsheet that I had. But that Format Painter is very helpful and useful in many situations. The next formatting tool I want you to be aware of is conditional formatting. Let's look at how that works. For this example, I'm going to click on column C. That highlights the entire column. And now I'm going to go here at the top where it says Conditional Formatting. This is on the Home tab, Home ribbon, and there it is. So I'll click on Conditional Formatting, and it pops up with a bunch of options that I have for how to conditionally format this information. Now, what do they mean by conditional formatting? Excel means that it's going to format these numbers based on certain conditions. Maybe it changes the color depending on how high the number is or how low the number is. Maybe it changes the font type. There's lots of different options that you have here. For this example, I'm just going to use color scales. So I put my mouse there, and there's a bunch of little tiny icons I can look at to see how this will be applied. You can just look at this and see, for example, this one is from dark green to white. And probably the higher the number, the darker green it will show up. This one goes from green at the top to red at the bottom. So the higher the number, probably the more green the formatting will be. And the lower the number, the more red. So there's all of these great options. I'm just going to choose this one in the upper left, green to red. So I click it, and immediately my cells that have numbers are formatted conditionally based on the number. The higher the number, the more green. The lower the number, the more red. This is a wonderful option for formatting. I can just glance at this spreadsheet and I can see that the most expensive game that I have right now is Ticket to Ride. And the least expensive game is Skip-Bo. And there's all these gradations in between. If you like that, I hope you'll look into some of these other options for formatting a cell or a range in this case. There are some wonderful options. I also do have a video tutorial specifically on conditional formatting that I recommend that you watch. The next formatting change that I'd like to make to this spreadsheet is you'll notice that this range deals with cost. These are all dollars and cents. And yet they just show up as decimals, 22.64. It's not obvious that this is currency. So let's look at how to format as currency. Again, I could format these one at a time, but instead I'll just click on column C. It highlights the entire column. And then here at the top on the Home tab, Home ribbon, if I go here to this area here, notice that it has a drop-down that says General. What that means is that this column is formatted to be general information. It might be text, it might be numbers, it's just general stuff. But if you want, you can click the drop-down arrow here and you can change it to currency. And it automatically adds a dollar sign. So it's obvious that this is money that we're dealing with in column C. Now this is what I prefer. This is how I like to see it. But some people prefer, instead of currency, they like to see accounting. And what that does is it just moves the dollar sign to the left, so it is a little bit easier to see the actual numbers because the dollar sign is scooted to the left. But either way, it treats these as dollars. Now notice all of the other formats that are available. There's date formats, and there's a variety of ways to show the date. There are time formats, percentages, there's text. This forces everything to be treated as text. Even if it's a number, it's treated as text. And you'll see there are even more number formats if you click there. So those formatting tips will help you to make your spreadsheets look the way you want them to look and to highlight the information that you would like them to highlight. Next, we're going to take a look at another intermediate Excel tip or trick. And this one is a real time saver. It's called the Autofill Handle. And a lot of people that have used Excel for quite some time don't even know that this Autofill Handle exists. Now, the place you find this handle is not obvious. I'm going to click on a cell, and the Autofill Handle is the little square that you see in the lower right corner of this cell that I've highlighted. You can see that, in this case, dark green square. If I put my mouse on that, my mouse pointer changes from a white plus sign to a black plus sign. That's because I'm over the Autofill Handle. Now, what does the Autofill Handle do? What's its purpose? It really does two things. It either copies information or it extends a pattern. So let's look at some examples. If with my mouse pointer right on that dark green square in the corner, if I click and hold and then drag down, it's going to copy the contents of cell A10. And you can see that it did that. Wacky 6, which is a fun, great card game, just got copy-pasted into the next cell. Now, the beauty of this is you can copy-paste very quickly and cover a lot of ground. You can see I just copy-pasted that 20 times. I'm going to undo that. But that's an example of the Autofill Handle copying information from one cell to the next. Now, the other thing it can do is extend a pattern. Let's try it with the number 4. If I use the Autofill Handle and drag down, look, it just copied the number. Why? Because there is no real pattern in the number 4. But what if I select 3 and 4? So the pattern here is add 1. If I use the Autofill Handle, click and hold, and drag down, look what it does. It adds 1 to each number. And so very, very quickly, I could have a list of numbers going up by one number at a time. I'm going to undo that, but hopefully you can see how useful that could be. Now, what if the pattern were 2, 4, 6? If I highlight that and extend the pattern, look, now it's going up every 2 numbers. You're going to have even numbers here. So Excel is good at identifying patterns, but only if you show Excel that pattern. You have to click and drag to highlight to demonstrate what the pattern is. Let's try it with words. Hall closet, basement, basement. If I extend that pattern, look, it's back to hall closet, basement, basement. So those are examples of the second thing that an Autofill Handle can do, which is extend a pattern or repeat a pattern. Now, the last example for now that I'm going to give you of the Autofill Handle is that it works really, really well with time. So for example, let's say I want to keep track of my time working on different projects. I'm just going to go to Sheet 2 and I'll zoom in a little bit here in the lower right. And I'm going to tab over to B1. And here I'd like to keep track of Mondays, and I'd like it to say Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, all throughout the week across the top. And then here at the left in A2, I would like to start, let's say at 6 in the morning. I like to get up early. So I've put in some things related to time. Let's look at how the autofill handle works with time. When I select B1 and go to the autofill handle, I click and drag, and look, it automatically knows what to do. Even though I didn't give it a pattern, because Monday is related to time, the autofill handle just understood and it worked. And I can continue that to Sunday as well. Let's look at 6 a.m. and see how it works. I'll click and drag, and look what it does. It just automatically extends by 1 hour. Now, what if you wanted it to be every half hour? I bet you can figure out what to do. You need to show Excel the pattern. So it's not enough just to have 6 a.m. I need to also type 6:30 a.m. Click and drag to highlight both. I am here showing Excel and demonstrating the kind of pattern I would like. Now I can go to the autofill handle, click and hold and drag down, and now it's every half hour is pasted onto the spreadsheet. So look for opportunities to use the autofill handle. It's a wonderful resource, and it works well also with months and anything else that's time related, or anytime there's a pattern, or if you just want to copy. At this point, I'm going to jump back to Sheet 1, and here we're going to get started with one of the most important things you can do in Excel, and that is create formulas. Everything we've looked at so far is nice, it's useful, but what I'm about to show, this is why Excel really exists, in my opinion. It's to execute formulas and functions, and to help us do math and do it much quicker and more accurately than we could on our own. And for this example, let's say I would like to create a grand total of the entire original cost of the games that I have in my inventory. What does it cost me to collect all of these games? So I would like to add that up and print it here, and that'll be the total cost. Just to the left of that cell, I'm going to type the words total cost, and I'll put a colon there. And then I'll tab over, and let's look at how I can do this. In Excel, whenever you're going to type a formula, you should start with an equal sign. And when I first started learning Excel, I found this very confusing. Why am I typing an equal sign? And then I remembered the limited amount of algebra that I learned in school. I remember lots of formulas like x equals b times y plus 15 minus z. I'm probably making a fool of myself here, but I remember the gist of those formulas. And that's what we're dealing with here. I'm typing basically an algebra type formula into this box. And so whenever I do a formula in Excel, I like to say in my head, this cell, and then I type equals. So this cell equals, and we're going to look at several ways to add up these dollar amounts. Let's do it the hard way first. This cell equals 26.99 plus 39.35 plus 22.64. And give me a couple of minutes to type in the rest of these, and then we'll resume the video. Okay, it took me a while to do that, but I've typed in all those numbers. I'm going to now tap return on the keyboard, and look, a couple of things happened. First, it added up all of those numbers that I had typed in with the plus signs, and that's the grand total. It worked great. But also notice it affected my conditional formatting. Why? Because now this by far is the highest number, and it turned it green. I should clear the rules and then redo it just with this range. Okay. So that's better. But also, that was way too tedious. I had to type in every single number, even the decimals, even the cents. That was way too time consuming. There's got to be a better way. And there is. This time, again, I'll say to myself, this cell, and then I'll type equals, and then I'll use a function, sum. Sum means add up. And then I put a left parenthesis, and I'll type C3. C3 is here, through. And if you watched my previous video, you know how to type the word through in Excel. It's a colon. So C3 through C10. And notice what it did. It highlighted exactly that range. Now, I want to show you an alternate way to do that. Instead of typing the numbers you can just pick up your hand from the keyboard, use the mouse, and click and drag the range. That works if the range is pretty small like this one. But imagine a spreadsheet with thousands, maybe 5,000 records. You wouldn't want to click and drag. You would want to just type the cell references here. So they're both good to know, and they both work well. Now at this point, I'm supposed to put in a right parenthesis to finish off that formula, but you actually don't have to, so I'm not going to. I tap return on the keyboard. It gave me the same result, but this time it was much easier and faster. Now with a sum formula like this, there's actually an even easier way and faster. So I'll delete that out. If you want the fastest way to do a sum, there's something called AutoSum. And you'll find it here on the Home tab, Home ribbon. Here in the upper right, there's AutoSum. I can just click that button, and it automatically will try to add up whatever is above the cell that you're in. Then just tap return, and it works. So that's the fastest. I will say, from time to time, this method has failed me. So just be careful, and you can see whether it's going to work or not based on what is highlighted. They're surrounded by this blue line, so that's what I wanted to add, and it's working. The other thing to know is you have some formula and function tools that can help you with your formulas. Here in the upper left is the formula bar. Sometimes when you're typing a formula in a cell, it can get a little hard to do. It's easy to make mistakes and things like that. So sometimes it's best just to click in a cell and then go up here to the formula bar, and here you can change your formula. You can type in exactly what you want to add up and then tap enter. So the formula bar is an alternative to typing in the cell itself. Another tool is just to the left of this formula bar. We've got this FX, and that stands for function, insert function. If you click on that, it gives you your equal sign, and it opens up a formula builder here at the right. You can search through those formulas. So let's say, for example, maybe I don't want to add up all those numbers. I want to average them. But maybe I don't know what the function is for average. So I can just type in average, and look, it shows me all of the options for average. And the one I want, it's kind of tricky, but it's just the word average. And this one I'll type here on the formula bar. So this cell equals the average, left parenthesis, of this range. And I'll just click and drag this time. I need to make sure I don't include the total. That would throw off the average. And then I'll just tap return on the keyboard. There's the average cost of these awesome board games. So I could write the word average here. Now, you might not be surprised, but here where it says AutoSum, if I click this arrow, there's actually an auto average also. There's also auto max and min, but let's look at those last two without using AutoSum. These last two, max and min, I'm going to type here to the left. I'll type highest cost and lowest cost. So here, I'd like to do a formula to detect the highest priced game. So I'll type in max, that's the function. And notice as I type these, it gives me some hints. But I just want the max of this range. Tap enter. That's the highest. Now let's do the min. So equals min, left parenthesis, of the same range. Tap return, and there's the cheapest. This formula builder can really help you out. If you know what you want to accomplish, but you don't know what the function is that you should use, do a search, and chances are you'll find what you want. And you can click on it, and then it gives you an explanation, a definition, sometimes an example as well, and you can even get more help on the function. All right, to finish off this video, I'd like to give you a glimpse of 3 advanced tips and tricks, and these are quick. The first is that it's possible to sort your spreadsheet. Now you'll notice that these games already are pretty much in alphabetical order. Yeah, it looks like they are. But maybe you want reverse alphabetical order. You can just click on the first cell in the first record and go up to the Home tab, Home ribbon. There's Sort and Filter. And I can click on that and sort Z to A. Notice that it sorted not just column A, but all of the data got sorted along with it, so that Wacky 6 still shows as a rating of 4. I'm going to undo that. You can also sort by number. So if I click here and do sort smallest to largest, now it's from the cheapest game to the most expensive game. So sorting is awesome, very useful. You can also filter. And the way you do a filter is you select the row or the column that you would like to apply the filter on, and then go to the Sort and Filter button, choose Filter this time, and it adds these little arrows in the cells of the row or column that you selected. And now I can click on this arrow and I can say to myself, I don't want to see all these games. I only want to see the 5-star games. So I click on 5, and now I'm done with the filter. And look, my list of 10, 12 games is now a list of 2. Now, instead of a spreadsheet with maybe 10 games, what if I had 1,000? This would be even more useful, even more important. It's a way to focus in on just the records that have something in common. Of course, you could say games of 4 stars and 5 stars, right? So it's up to you to decide what's included in the filter or what's not. I could also filter based on the location in the house where it's stored. The one downside to using filters is sometimes you can forget to remove the filter, and then it feels like you've lost your data. So it's important to remember to put those back. And if you don't need the filter anymore, you can just highlight the text, go to Sort and Filter, and Unfilter. All right, my last tip for you, again, has to do with what if you get a big spreadsheet. This spreadsheet is so small and manageable that it's easy to use. But let's say I get 1,000 games. As I browse down the page to put in another game, it's going to be hard for me to remember, what does column C stand for? What does that mean? What do I put in column D? So there's a little trick that you can use, and that's called freeze panes. The way you apply freeze panes is you click on the row or column, if you want to try it that way, just below the item that you would like to freeze. So I would like to freeze rows 1 and 2 so that I can always see them no matter how far down the spreadsheet I go. Because I want to freeze rows 1 and 2, I'm going to go to row 3, click on it to highlight it, and then I'll go to View, and there's the View tab, and there's Freeze Panes. So I click on that. It has now frozen rows 1 and 2. No matter how far down I go on the spreadsheet, I can see rows 1 and 2. So in this tutorial, we've looked at some intermediate skills, tips, and tricks, including formatting, the autofill handle, formulas and functions, and I threw in some advanced items like sorting, filtering, and freeze panes. I hope that you found this video to be helpful. If you did, please click the like button below and consider connecting with me on my social media websites like Facebook, Pinterest, and Twitter. And definitely do subscribe to my YouTube channel for more videos about technology for teachers and students. And when you do so, please click the bell next to the subscribe button. This will notify you whenever I upload a new video. And watch for another video from me at least every Monday. If you'd like to support my YouTube channel, please consider becoming a supporter of mine through my Patreon account. I post sample spreadsheets there. Every once in a while I post a video update or other bonus video, and it really does help me keep this channel free. So you'll find a link to that in the description below, along with links to these amazing board games. And feel free to check out my other Excel tutorials. I have lots of intermediate and advanced tutorials. They're not Mac specific, but they work very similarly on Windows and Mac.